This is a map detailing the insanely underrated story of Jacob in the Bible. Today I'll be proving to you why this often neglected story is actually a hidden masterpiece most Christians don't appreciate. From the deception, intrigue, and politics between characters, to the journeys, the locations, and the symbols. The story of Jacob isn't just a well-told tale, it's a perfectly crafted masterpiece, with foreshadowing stretched across 20 plus years and symbolism that reveals just how incredible God is at writing stories. This series is called Masterpiece, where we analyze stories in the Bible that don't get a lot of attention and focus on the literary structure of them. This is an English class, don't worry. Think of it like a film review for the movie of the life of Jacob, but this is going to be so much deeper than your average film review. After this video, you will finally understand why the story of Jacob is so effective, so emotional, why God used such unusual characters to carry out his will, and why Jacob's story affects our stories here and now. If this video is in any way helpful or entertaining to you, please consider subscribing. My promise to you is that in return for your subscription, I'll continue to produce the highest quality Christian content I can. We want every Bible Animations upload to be top tier, and we can't do that without your support. But now, we need to travel to the land of Canaan, to where this incredible story all begins. Rebecca has been barren for 20 years. 20 years. Then she finally conceives. Twins, actually. And before they're born, before they're even people in the world, they are at war. The text says the children struggled together within her. Past tense. Habitual. They were already in conflict. She asks God if she's going to die. God answers her, and the answer is the next 10 chapters in compressed form. 2 nations are in your womb. 2 manner of people shall be separated from your bowels. The one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger. That is the entire spine of the story of Jacob, delivered in chapter 25, before the protagonists have even been born. The author is telling you the ending right at the start. The older shall serve the younger. And then he spends 10 chapters making you watch how that prophecy gets fulfilled in the most chaotic, deceptive, and painful way imaginable. Also, let's take a second to give some kudos to Rebecca here. It's one thing to feel a baby kick, it's quite another to have 2 nations engaging in generational combat within you. So the babies are born. The first one comes out red, hairy as a pelt, and they name him Esau, which is a play on the word for hairy. Then the second twin comes out gripping Esau's heel. That's not normal. That's not how birth works. The author of Genesis has chosen to put, at the moment we meet our protagonists, the picture of him grabbing what isn't his. He gets named for it. Jacob. Yaakov. Heel grabber. Or less politely, deceiver. The name and the action are the same Hebrew word, a verb actually. The first thing he does in the world is grab. The first time we see him, we are seeing the engine of the entire story. That's invisible ink right there. You may not have noticed it, it's not written down, but your brain certainly did. The boys grow up, the author paints them as opposites in a single sentence. Esau was a man of the field, a hunter. Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. That's it, 8 words in the Hebrew. And those 8 words set up a conflict that's going to run for the next 10 chapters. One brother is all impulse, earth, and outdoors. The other brother is calculation and shelter. The writer also slips this gem in. One brother is loved by the father, the other brother is loved by the mother. Seems like pretty basic exposition until you realize what he's telling you. The household is already split down the middle, a crucial dynamic sketched in a single line. That is characterization through specificity. Most modern writers would take a paragraph. The author of Genesis takes a single sentence. Next, we see our first real interaction between the brothers. I believe God is the great healer, but often he heals through unexpected methods, whether it's through medicine or the miraculous.
God is still showing up and healing not only physical damage, but spiritual damage too. And one of the most powerful methods of healing is actually therapy. Now, I'm not talking any regular therapy. I'm talking Christ-centered, Bible-based therapy from a therapist who loves Jesus. I've used BetterHelp, today's paid partner, to meet a fantastic Christian therapist who shed some light on the difficulties in my life. He gave me practical insight in tackling repetitive sin and how to navigate tense environments. 1 Corinthians 10:13 was mentioned. 3 truths about resisting temptation. No temptation has overcome you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Super practical, super helpful. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy provider, and you can access their worldwide service anytime, anywhere. You take this comprehensive survey that helps match you with a therapist on your level. This might be the final step before you see a miracle of healing. Give therapy a try through betterhelp.com/BibleAnimations for 10% off your first month.
Kicking off our first arc, we're going to call the Blessing Arc. There are 2 key events to take note of in this section, and from here, we start to really flesh out our 2 main characters and the conflict that will last the duration of the story. But there's a hidden detail I need you to pay close attention to that will come up again later in this video. Esau comes in from hunting. He's exhausted. The text uses a specific word for it, the same word used elsewhere for soldiers about to collapse on a battlefield. He's not just hungry, he is wrecked. Jacob is at home, as he tends to be, cooking lentil stew. "Let me eat some of that red stuff," Esau says. "I'm fainting." Even his vocabulary betrays him. He calls the stew the red stew because he's so depleted he can't reach for the proper word for lentil. And Jacob says, "Sell me your birthright first." Look at what just happened. Esau, exhausted, asks his brother for food. Jacob, who has the food, who is in his mother's tent, who is not going anywhere and has no urgency, sees an opportunity. His brother is on the ground. His brother can't think. And Jacob says, "Sell me your birthright." The birthright was a real thing. Double portion of the inheritance, headship over the family after the father died, the future of the household. Jacob is asking for that in exchange for soup. Esau says, "Look, I'm dying. What good is a birthright to a dead man?" He sells. He eats, he drinks, he leaves. The narrator then inks one sentence, dry as dust. Thus, Esau despised his birthright. End scene. That 2-paragraph scene tells you exactly who these brothers are. Esau is impulse incarnate. He can't see past the next hour. He'll trade the future for a bowl of soup. Jacob, however, is calculation incarnate. He sees an opening and he takes it. He's a master improviser and a very strategic thinker. Neither one of these men is a hero. The author hasn't been kind to either of them. Yet here's where reading the invisible ink pays off. Notice what we are missing. There's a writing concept called save the cat. The idea is simple. If your protagonist has qualities the audience might find off-putting, like selfishness or cunning, you give them an early scene where they do something small that makes the audience root for them. They save a cat, they help a kid, they're kind to a stranger. It earns the audience investment in a character who would not otherwise get it. Jacob has no save the cat moment. Look back, search the text. We've met Jacob in the womb grabbing. We've met him in the kitchen, extorting his fainting brother. That's our protagonist. That is the man God has chosen. The author is not giving us a single reason to like him. And yet somehow, we are still here. We are still reading. Why? Because the author has set up an investment that's bigger than likability. The prophecy, the struggle in the womb, the names, the fact that this man is going to be one of the patriarchs whose name God puts on his own people. The hook is not, I want Jacob to succeed. The hook is, what on earth is God going to do with this guy? That's the engine. That's what's pulling us through. A chosen man isn't always chosen because he's good. Every chapter from here on is a variation of that statement. Here's where the second key event takes place. And notice what impact this has on our main characters. Isaac is old now and he's going blind. He calls in Esau, his favorite son, and tells him to go hunt some game and prepare a meal, that my soul may bless you before I die. Let me add some context. Isaac knows the prophecy. He's known it for decades. Rebecca told him before the boys were born, the older shall serve the younger. Esau has already sold his birthright. right. Esau has already married 2 foreign Hittite wives that the text explicitly tells us made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. In-laws, am I right? The narrator does not need to spell out what Isaac is doing here. Quietly, privately, before he dies, Isaac tries to hand his blessing to the wrong son. He doesn't make a public declaration. He doesn't summon both boys. He calls Esau in alone, asks him for a meal first, and prepares to bless him in private. The author isn't telling us Isaac is doing something wrong. The author is telling us to watch him do it. And then Rebekah was listening. Not a dramatic moment of overhearing. The narrator just drops it on the side. Rebekah heard. That's all the author needs. We know exactly what happens next. Rebekah finds Jacob, tells him to do exactly as she says. She has him slaughter 2 young goats. She then cooks them the way Isaac likes them. She takes Esau's clothes off the peg and puts them on Jacob. She takes the skin of the goats, let's not breeze past that, and she ties them to Jacob's hands and the smooth part of his neck. Jacob walks into his blind father's tent dressed as his hairy brother, Esau. Picture this. The deception is tactile, it's physical. Jacob's voice is going to give him away if Isaac listens too closely, so he's going to lie quickly. His hands are going to give him away if Isaac touches him, so he's wearing animal skins. His scent is going to give him away if Isaac smells him, so he's wearing his brother's clothes. This isn't a quick lie. This is a costume, a production. The author wants you to feel the weight of Jacob's deception, the lengths he is willing to go to steal his brother's blessing. Stage set, the scene work begins. My father, here I am. Who are you, my son? Now, this is where the author goes from craftsman to virtuoso. Watch what he does. Isaac suspects something the entire scene. The author has him question Jacob 4 separate times. He's blind, but he's not stupid. And his suspicion runs through the entire encounter like a wire pulled tight. How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? Jacob lies. Come near that I may feel you. Jacob walks up. Isaac feels his arms. And then one of the most beautifully compressed lines in the whole book. The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Isaac is right. He sees through it. He says it out loud, and he blesses Jacob anyway. One more time he asks, are you really my son Esau? Jacob says yes. Isaac eats, he drinks, he pulls his son close, kisses him, smells the field on his clothes, blesses him a second time, breathing it directly into him. May God give you the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Jacob walks out. 8 seconds later, Esau walks in. That whole sequence is the setup, the covering of the skin, the pretending to be the older sibling, the deceiving of a father who can't see. Every single one of those beats is a setup the author is going to pay off 20 years from now, with the same brutal precision. We won't see the payoff for hundreds of verses, but the author has just planted it, every detail of it, into our memory. The scene of recognition is hard to read. Esau comes in with his game. Let my father arise and eat his son's game, that you may bless me. Isaac shakes. Who are you? I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. And Isaac trembles violently and asks the question every reader knows the answer to. Who then was the one who came in before? He realizes. He says it. I have blessed him, and he shall be blessed. The blessing cannot be revoked. Esau cries out. The text says it was a great and exceedingly bitter cry. That phrase appears only one other time in the Hebrew Bible, just one. It shows up again in the book of Esther when Mordecai learns of Haman's plot to wipe out the Jewish people. He tears his clothes, puts on sackcloth, and goes out into the city with a great and bitter cry. And here's a little piece of insight many miss. Haman in Jewish tradition descends from the line of Esau. Mordecai descends from the line of Jacob. Centuries later, Esau's cry over Jacob's deception finds an echo across the canon, except this time it's Jacob's descendant crying out and Esau's descendant doing the harm. The author of the Hebrew Bible has reached across 2 whole books to put the same phrase in 2 mouths from opposite sides of that family. That is invisible ink across the canon. Bless me, even me also, my father. And Esau gets a lesser blessing. In his fury, Esau delivers one of the coldest lines in all of Scripture. The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Rebekah overhears the threat again. Okay, now to be fair with the writer of Genesis, didn't necessarily say whether Isaac had a problem controlling the volume of his voice or Rebecca had an eavesdropping problem. Maybe it's just more invisible ink. Either way, what he did tell us is that she tells Jacob to run. She sends him to her brother Laban, far across the country until Esau's anger cools. Jacob runs. He's stolen everything from his family, he has lied to his blind, dying father, he has destroyed his relationship with his brother, and now he's alone, on the road, with nothing. And that's where the first arc ends. The deceiver is on the run. Now we enter the first of two periods we call the traveling arcs, or the flights. These feature Jacob in the wilderness passing from one location to another, one arc to another. And both of these traveling arcs are often skimmed over, but in truth act as the glue that holds the entire narrative together. Jacob is alone in the wilderness. He stops at a place we will later know as Bethel. He puts a stone under his head and sleeps, and he dreams. A ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to the heavens. Angels of God ascending and descending on it, and the Lord stands above it and speaks. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land you lie on, I will give to you, and to your descendants. And behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you again into this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you of. Jacob wakes up in a gasp. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. He takes the stone he slept on, sets it up as a pillar, pours oil on it, and names the place Bethel, the house of God. Okay, let's stop there, because this is the moment in the script where I want you to notice something. Look at where we are in the story. Jacob has just done the worst thing he's ever done. He's lied to his dying father, he has stolen from his brother, and he is fleeing for his life. Every narrative instinct says this is where the protagonist hits rock bottom. This is where the punishment lands. This is where the deceiver finally has to face what he's done. And what does God do? He gives him a vision of heaven. That is in itself one of the most powerful statements about God's nature, and the author emphasizes it beautifully. Jacob is alone, dirty and on the run, having ruined everything, and the author lets that moment sit without defense. Then God himself reaffirms the blessing. The land I gave Abraham, I'm giving to you. I will go wherever you go. I will not leave you. The grace comes first, before the transformation, before the punishment, before even the apology. The grace lands on a deceiver on the run. The author isn't writing a redemption arc with earned grace. God is doing something stranger. The grace is unconditional. The transformation, when it comes, is going to come later, and it's going to come the hard way. Watch this through the rest of our next arc. This pattern is going to repeat. Coming into our second arc, Jacob finally meets his match. After years of deceiving, cheating, and running away, he finally gets a taste of his own medicine. But the invisible ink in this arc is tremendously fascinating. Jacob keeps walking. He arrives in the country of the people of the East, sees a well, and meets Rachel, his cousin, watering her father's flock. And for the first time in the narrative, Jacob breaks. The text says he kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. The man who has manipulated his way through every scene of his life so far meets a woman and falls apart in front of her. We see the author highlight one of Jacob's first real moments, and being truthful is going to save his life later on. Jacob's defenses, after a lifetime of grasping, finally breaks thanks to a girl by a well. Jacob meets Laban, Rachel's father and his uncle. Laban embraces him, kisses him, and brings him in. After a month, Laban says, "Because you are my relative, should you serve me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." And Jacob, deep in love, says, "I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." Laban agrees. Now, there's nothing explicitly written in the text that indicates something is off, but most of you felt it without realizing it. Jacob serves 7 years. The text says they seem like just a few days for the love he had for her. 7 years pass in a sentence. The end of the 7th year, Jacob says, "Give me my wife." Laban throws a feast, brings her into the tent at night. Jacob goes into her, and in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Stop. That is a deep exhale moment if there ever was one. 20 years of story time ago, Jacob put on a costume. He covered himself in another sibling's appearance. He walked into a dark tent at night when the man inside could not clearly see and took what wasn't his. This morning, in the same kind of tent, Jacob has just been on the receiving end of the exact trick he pulled 20 years prior. Leah, the older sister of Rachel, was put under a covering and brought into a tent at night. When Jacob couldn't clearly see, Jacob took her thinking she was the younger. Same beat, same physical move, wrong sibling under a covering. 20 years apart. That's the payoff. That is paying back the setup planted in chapter 27 to the move. Most readers feel the rightness of this scene without naming why. They feel that something of balance has just occurred. Naming what just happened is the show. Jacob the deceiver has just been deceived. The man who used a covering to take a blessing has just had a covering used on him to take 7 years of his life. The theme of the entire arc in one sentence: you play the game of lies, you get punished by a deception. Jacob confronts Laban in the morning. "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel. Why have you deceived me?" And Laban, calm as a stone, says, "It is not custom in our country to give the younger before the older." Listen to that line. It's not custom in our country to give the younger before the older. Laban is, with one sentence, throwing Jacob's entire life back at him. The younger, before the firstborn. The whole Jacob arc is Jacob taking what belongs to the firstborn. Laban has just rebuked him in the language of his own crime. A side character, a charismatic deceiver in his own right, delivers the moral of Jacob's life into Jacob's face. Jacob agrees to serve another 7 years for Rachel, 14 years total, the woman he loves. The engine does not stop. War of the wives begin. Leah, less loved, bears children rapidly. Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Each of her sons get a name that betrays her real condition. See a son, heard, joined. She's announcing what she wants from Jacob in the naming of her boys. Then she has Judah, and the text says she stopped. Stopped naming her grief in her sons. Stopped trying to win Jacob. Started praising God instead. This time, I will praise the Lord. That's Leah's whole arc. Watch the author show you that in 3 syllables of a name. Judah, praise. From that moment, Leah stops bearing for a long stretch. The author is showing you that she has changed by changing what comes out of her body. Rachel envies. She gives Jacob her servant Bilhah. Leah, no longer bearing, gives Jacob her servant Zilpah. The wives are in a competition that has stopped being about Jacob entirely. They are competing for victory over each other. The narrator notes the names of every son and the reason given. The reasons read like a tally. 12 sons in total. 12 tribes of Israel, eventually. The whole nation comes from this domestic mess. Israel is being built out of broken people getting it wrong. 20 years pass. Laban changes Jacob's wages 10 times. The deceiver gets played again. But here we get a further glimpse into a parallel rivalry taking place. Not between Leah and Rachel, but between Jacob and Laban. See, Laban appears to be a friendly, warm, and charismatic individual from the outside, but in truth, he's just as crooked and deceptive as Jacob. At this point, Jacob wishes to leave Laban and return home with his family. Laban, however, has a different idea. He requests that Jacob continue to tend his flocks, so Jacob makes a counteroffer. Any speckled sheep born into Laban's flock would become property of Jacob. All pure sheep would remain property of Laban. Laban agreed, but his first move was very devious. Before entrusting his flock to Jacob, he removed as many speckled sheep as he could and entrusted them to his own sons, leaving Jacob with a sabotaged flock. Despite that, Jacob is blessed by God and through some unusual breeding methods, comes out with far more livestock than Laban in the end. God blesses Jacob's herds despite Jacob using folk magic to do it. The author makes a point of telling us that. The grace is still unconditional. It's interesting to note here that there is no mention of Laban's sons before this. When Jacob first arrives at Laban's estate, he was welcomed as his own flesh. Jacob was Laban's son. Now it seems his position has been taken by true-born sons, bloodline sons, and Jacob's claim and favor is dwindling. Laban no longer sees Jacob as a son, but a rival. Then the household turns. Laban's sons start grumbling. Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has gained all his wealth. The narrator slips in a follow-up that says everything in one line, and Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude towards him was not what it had been. The vibe of the household has shifted. 20 years of welcome ends in a side eye. Jacob runs again. Steal, cheat, run, repeat. That has been Jacob's pattern since the womb, flees Laban without telling him. And on the way out, Rachel does something very interesting. She steals her father's household idols. The narrator slips this in casually, the way the narrator slipped in Rebecca was listening in chapter 27, just on the side. Rachel had stolen the teraphim, which were her father's. The thief's wife is a thief herself. The author is showing us that the pattern doesn't just live in Jacob anymore, it is spread to the household around him. The man who built his life on lies and theft has built a family that lies for him. Laban catches up to the runaway camp 3 days later. He was already going to chase. His daughters and grandchildren had been smuggled out, but the text makes a point of telling us what raises the temperature. "Why did you steal my gods?" Laban says. That's the line that turns a chase into a search. Laban goes through every tent. Rachel sits on a saddlebag with the idols hidden inside and tells her father that she cannot rise because the way of the woman is upon me. That is the line in your Bible. Read it for yourself. Rachel deceives her father by sitting on her stolen gods and using her body as the lie. The author wants you to feel the deceptive pattern is fully in bloom. Laban doesn't find them. The rivals confront each other, and after their dispute, they make a covenant. And here is the detail that I love. They mark the covenant by setting up a heap of stones. They name the place Gilead. Pause. That is the second time in the story of Jacob that a stone has been used to witness a promise. The first was Bethel, during Jacob's first flight, the first traveling ark. He sets up a stone there too, and named the place. The author has now bookended the Laban arc with stones. Stones witness Jacob's flight from Esau. Stones witness Jacob's flight from Laban. The author is making sure we feel that this whole story is being remembered. The Lord watches between you and me when we are absent from one another. The Lord watching the schemers. The God of Abraham keeping track. Jacob crosses the river, heads for home, but his greatest challenge was just over the horizon. In order to fulfill God's promise, Jacob had to return to his homeland. As a result, he had to face his brother that he ran away from. Esau is coming with 400 men. Jacob is going to face his brother for the first time in 20 years. The brother he stole from, the brother who vowed to kill him. And what does Jacob do? He panics. He reaches for the only playbook he's ever used. He divides his people into 2 camps, so if Esau attacks one, the other might escape. He sends wave after wave of livestock ahead of him as gifts to soften Esau's hatred before they meet. He hides his wives and his children behind the gifts. Steal, cheat, run, repeat. He is still scheming. The Bethel grace was real. The 14 years of labor were real, but the transformation has not yet happened. He is still Jacob, the deceiver, the heel grasper. And the one whose heel was grasped in the womb is coming for revenge. This is the part of the story I want you to feel coming. The author has spent all these chapters showing us a man who runs. The ark has built and built. The reader is waiting for something to break the pattern. Something has to give. The original subconscious question we had at the very beginning starts to burn into our mind. Remember the hook? What on earth is God going to do with this guy? Night falls. Jacob sends everyone he has across the river. He stays alone on the other side. And then a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. That's it. That's the whole introduction. The author doesn't tell us who the man is. The author does not describe him. There is no setup, no entrance, no warning. A man arrives in the dark and grabs Jacob as they wrestle. All night. Now look at what we are not told. The text refuses to tell us who this man is. It just says it's a man. The man and Jacob fight all night. The man could not prevail against Jacob, so the man touches Jacob's hip and dislocates it. With a touch, a modern adaptation would clarify all of this. The author refuses. The man says, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." Jacob says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Read that line again. The man who spent his entire life grabbing is now grabbing on for a blessing in the dark. He is doing the thing he's always done before. For the first time, he's doing it for the right thing. He's not stealing the blessing, he's asking for it. He's holding on for it, and he is doing so injured. The man asks his name. Jacob says it. Yaakov. That word again. Heel grabber. Deceiver. His own name is the confession. I am Jacob. For the first time in a long time, he says it with honesty. The first time he has said, "I am the deceiver," out loud. And the man says, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." The deceiver has been renamed. Jacob asks the man his name. Man refuses, blesses him, and then vanishes. And then Jacob, alone again, names the ground beneath his feet Peniel, face of God. He says it himself. "I have seen God's face, and my life is preserved." This is the move. The text never names the wrestler, but Jacob does. The author is letting the protagonist identify what just happened by what he calls the dirt where it happened. The man we couldn't see, Jacob saw. The author refused to name him, Jacob doesn't. That's how the author resolves the question without ever answering it. He hands the answer to the man with the limp. The sun rises and Jacob, now Israel, walks out limping. Pause right there. This is where the text resists you. The author has just made a series of craft choices that withhold things a modern reader desperately wants. Who is this man? The text won't say. What does the wound mean? Text won't say. Why does this man bless after Jacob has, in a sense, won? The text won't say. A modern adaptation would tell us the author of Genesis refuses. That silence is deafening. The wound is permanent. Jacob walks away changed, but the change comes in a body that limps. The man who grabbed his brother's heel in the womb is the man who walks away from God with a damaged hip. The whole arc has been about a man chasing what wasn't his. Steal, cheat, run, repeat. And he is wounded exactly there. Not in the hand, not in the heel, but in the joint that powered every flight. The engine. The runner can't run anymore. This is not a clean redemption. This is not a hero learning the lesson and becoming healed. The author refuses that ending. Israel is going to spend the rest of his life walking on a limp. He has been blessed and he has been broken. The author is showing us in one stage direction at the end of the scene that those two things are happening at the same time. Transformation comes with a scar. And then the scene right after is the second great withholding. Jacob looks up and Esau is coming. 400 men. The confrontation we've been waiting for since chapter 27. But Jacob is changed. The man who used to hide behind gifts now goes ahead of his family. He walks towards his brother first, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near, limping the whole way. The man who spent his life running is finally facing his fears. And here is a detail worth pausing on. Esau, watching from a distance, isn't seeing the brother he remembers. The brother Esau remembers was fast. The brother Esau remembers was the schemer who slipped past every confrontation. What Esau sees coming towards him now is a man bent over, bowing every few steps, dragging one leg. The limp got there before any words could. We will never know if that's why Esau ran instead of swung, but the author put the limp before the embrace for a reason. The climactic confrontation follows, and it reads, Esau ran to him and embraced him. He fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. That's it. That's the climax. The dramatic showdown the author has been building towards for 20 years of story time, and it's a hug. Esau, who vowed to kill his brother, runs to him. And in the cultural code of the time, a man of Esau's status didn't run. Running was undignified for a head of household. Esau's robes are up around his hips and he is sprinting at his brother, and he doesn't care. He falls on his neck. Jacob offers him gift after gift. Esau says, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." The author has spent so much time setting up this confrontation, and then he refuses to let it be anything but a reconciliation. The brothers who fought in the womb meet again as men, and they weep and they part in peace. Both withholdings, the wrestling and the reunion, are the author doing the same thing. He is refusing the dramatic resolution we expect and giving us something stranger and harder and more honest. The wound stays. The reunion is grace. The arc closes without satisfying our human needs. Things like vengeance, comeuppance, vitriol, and that's because the story was never about humanity, it was for humanity. A few chapters later, Isaac dies, and Esau and Jacob bury him together. I want you to feel the symmetry of this. The author opened the arc with 2 boys fighting in the womb of one mother. He closes the arc with the same 2 men, now old, closing their father's eyes together at the grave. 10 chapters between those 2 images, a whole life. Lies, deception, 20 years of separation, a stolen blessing, a wrestled blessing, a limp, a hug, and the brothers end up at the same grave. That's the arc. That's the whole thing in 2 pictures. The author opened on a conflict in the womb and closed on reconciliation at the tomb. And everything in between is the slow, painful working out of how a chosen man is not chosen because he is good, gets brought home anyway. Trace that line forward and you find Judah, the son named when Leah stopped grasping and started praising. Judah becomes a tribe. The tribe becomes a kingdom. Kingdom waits 1,000 years for a king, and then a son is born. They name him Yeshua, Yahweh saves. Jacob spent his whole life running from his name. This descendant of Jacob ran towards his. This is the author still working across books, across thousands of years of story time, setting up, paying off, still working on you right now, writing your true name in the book of life, not in invisible ink, in the blood of a lamb. The descendant hung on a cross for broken people like Jacob, like you and like me. He did it so that we could have freedom from sin in his name. If you haven't repented and turned to Christ, now is your chance. While the door is still open, confess your sins to him in prayer and trust him for your salvation. If you appreciated this video and you want to continue your journey, please click here. I think this one will bless you.